As the year 2020 draws to a close, I set a goal for myself to try to upload a video every day for the rest of the year. And as I scraped the bottom of the barrel of ideas on what to make videos on, I thought I could make a quick video by reading this press release by the U.S. Department of Agriculture on the topic of the Custer wolf. Now, if you haven't seen my video yet, I'd highly recommend you do so before you watch this, because there will be spoilers. So if you are interested, then please check that video out first. Or if you're not interested, I guess, why are you even watching this? Anyway, this press release came out January 17th, 1921, which was a few months after the Custer wolf was killed in October of the previous year. That's about 100 years ago from right now. And this press release was written by a man named Dixon Merritt. And if you don't know who Dixon Merritt is, he was a poet and humorist and also a newspaper editor that lived during the time. In the year 1910, he penned a well-known limerick, which goes as follows. A wonderful bird is the pelican. His bill will hold more than his belly can. He can take in his beak enough food for a week, but I'm damned if I see how the hell he can. This press release was one of the sources I used in my research when I put together the video I made. Back in those days, just as now, journalists would often exaggerate and embellish things for, clickbait, I guess you would say, though it wasn't, you didn't click on anything. Back in those days, everything was printed in newspapers or whatever. But I guess a word you could use to describe it is fake news, I guess, because there was some fakeness to it. But at the same time, there's also a kernel of truth. The story actually did happen, but maybe it was exaggerated to some extent to sell newspapers or whatever. Anyway, I will go ahead and read this now. The World's Greatest Animal Criminal Dead by Dixon Merritt. The Custer wolf is dead. He was the master criminal of the animal world. Throughout the region of Custer, South Dakota, that day, the telephone lines were busier than they were on the day the armistice was signed. For 9 years, this wolf lived as an outlaw, the cruelest, the most sagacious, the most successful animal outlaw that the range country had ever known. His cruelty was surpassed only by his cunning. He killed with the refinement of animal ferocity. Here, tonight, tomorrow night, he devastated a range 100 miles away. He loped through every kind of danger and spurned them all. He sniffed at the subtlest poison and passed it by. The most adroitly concealed trap was as clear to him as a mirror in the sunshine. Old hunters, unerring shots, drew the bead on him and saw him glide away unharmed. The price on his head was $500. Bounty hunters sought him for profit. Sportsmen put forth every device to slay him for reputation's sake, and still the old wolf went unscathed about his work of destruction. Credulous people said he was a charmed thing. Others attributed his immunity to a wisdom greater than beast ever before possessed. Still others said he escaped by plain luck, the mysterious thing that adheres to some animals as to some men. In whatever way they explained his uncanny elusiveness, everybody feared him, perhaps not consciously, very rarely openly, but there was no man throughout that region who did not feel a shiver run down between his shoulder blades when, alone or in the dark, he thought of this gray devil of the desert. All kinds of stories got abroad. This thing, they said, was not a wolf, not merely a wolf. They believed that nature had perpetrated a monstrosity, half wolf and half mountain lion, possessing the craftiness of both and the cruelty of hell. In public opinion, he had all the qualities of the werewolf of old world legends. No wonder that the telephones hummed when the word went out that a hunter sent by the United States Department of Agriculture to protect the livestock industry had killed the criminal wolf. That word ended a 9 years reign of dread during which the stockmen around Custer had paid tribute to this wolf to the extent of $25,000 worth of livestock. And mere money loss was not the whole of the horrible toll he took. When he killed for food, he took only the choicest animals, but sometimes he killed in atrocious ways for the mere sake of killing. Often he wounded cattle, breaking their legs, biting off their tails, mutilating them in unspeakable ways. 4 years ago his mate was killed. He never took another, and many people supposed that he devoted himself to revenge for her death. Later on, he attached to himself 2 coyotes, not as equals, but as servants. He never permitted them to come near him, and they could feed from his kills only after he himself had finished. They traveled far out on his flanks, giving him warning of ambush or approaching danger, and adding to the atmosphere of mystery that surrounded him. After a bounty, reaching by stages from $100 to $500, failed to bring in the old criminal's scalp, after private trappers and sportsman hunters had given up the quest, after poisons and dogs had failed, the stockmen tried a roundup. Having, as they thought, located the wolf, a large number of riders started in a great circle and closed up. This, like all other devices, was unsuccessful. Some of the stockmen, in resignation, announced that they would have to board the wolf for the rest of his life. Others decided to send for a government hunter. Therefore, in March 1920, the Bureau of Biological Survey, United States Department of Agriculture, sent to Custer H.P. Williams, one of its best hunters, with instructions to stay after the wolf until he was taken, no matter how much time was required. Williams went. He took with him a bunch of traps, but as the old wolf was known to be trap-wise, he expected to depend mainly on his rifle. As things turned out, he required both the trap and the rifle to get the wolf when he was finally taken on October 11, 1920. Since there is involved in this story the reputation of 2 geniuses, the criminal genius of the wolf and the protective genius of Williams, it may be just as well to let the account proceed in the language of the predatory animal inspector who reported the facts to the Biological Survey. It was a long time coming. Like most outdoor men, he did not want to talk in heroics. Here is the story from the time Williams went to Custer until he brought down the criminal. When Williams first went into the country where the wolf ranged, he tried to find fresh tracks, but without success. He asked some of the men who had lost stock just where the wolf made his headquarters in their section. They said the wolf may have had quarters anywhere within a district 40 miles wide and 65 miles long. They told him to wait there a few days, and the wolf would be sure to pay him a visit. Contrary to their advice, Williams went into the hills west of Pringle and found that the wolf was staying around some old dens in Pelgar Mountains. Williams scented up the soles of his shoes and started stringing out his traps. The wolf got on his trail that night and showed signs of great excitement at what he thought to be the presence of a possible mate in his neighborhood. He followed the scent entirely around the line and then, returning to Pelgar Mountains, cleared out 2 old dens and made a new one, which ran back into the hill for about 50 feet. On April 1st, Williams had his first glimpse of the wolf, but was unable to get a shot at him. The coyotes were acting as bodyguards, traveling from 100 to 200 yards on the flanks of their master. They would warn him of danger by taking flight. For a while, Williams did not shoot the coyotes, hoping that he would get a chance at the wolf without having to give him warning by the shots that would be necessary to dispatch his bodyguard. Finally, realizing that there was no chance of getting at the wolf unless the coyotes were killed, Williams shot them, hoping that he then had a clear field. In this he was greatly mistaken. The wolf played hide and seek with him. After making a kill, he would go on for some distance, backtrail for a few rods to a point where he could keep under cover and watch the hunter on his trail. Though this is a common habit of a bear, I have never before known a wolf to do it. It was on April 26 that Mr. Williams first found the wolf was doing this. At other times, the wolf took to fallen timber so he could not be tracked. Twice during May, the wolf stepped on the jaws of traps, and on the night of July 3rd, he rolled into or lay down on one and had a lot of his hair pulled out. This gave him such a scare that he left the country for a while. No sign could be found of him near Custer until the night of August 1st, when he made his presence known by killing several head of cattle and wounding several more. Williams found some of these cattle, took the trail of the wolf, and followed him all day on a fresh track. This led up to the mouth of a canyon, and knowing that the wolf would be taking a sleep after his big feed, Williams tied his horse and started in. Just then 2 horsemen came up, riding at breakneck speed and calling to Williams that they had found a yearling steer killed by the wolf. Williams mentioned them to go back, but they did not understand what he meant, and he was forced to return to meet them. Thus, he lost the best chance he ever had of getting the wolf with a rifle. When he returned to the trail, he found the place where the wolf had bedded down to sleep. The noise made by the horseman had given him the alarm, and he had gone back down the canyon very close to the hunter and escaped. Early in September, the wolf stepped on a trap and was caught slightly by 1 foot. Apparently the trap had tipped so that it caught only one side of the foot, and the wolf was able to pull loose. He left some hair in the trap. This happened again in the early days of October. Williams finally got the wolf on October 11th. Here is his own account of it. He stepped into a trap in the morning and it got good grip on him. He ran with it about 150 yards when the hook caught on a tree, but that did not seem to stop him at all. He broke the swivel of the trap and ran on with it on his front foot. I trailed him 3 miles and got a shot at him and got him. He has been so lucky that I expected the gun would fail to shoot, but it worked okay. He is smaller than the average male wolf, weighed 98 pounds, and measured just 6 feet from tip to tip, 11 inches from toe to hock, and had a tail 14 inches long. His teeth would be good for 15 years longer. He broke some of them off on the trap, but aside from that, they were in good condition. He is an old wolf with a fur that is almost white. In that simple fashion does the man who outwitted the cleverest of animal criminals tell his story. And this is one of the sources I used when I put together my video. There were several others, but this probably was the best one. But there were some minor contradictions between them, so I tried to piece it together in such a way that I thought it made the best narrative and tried to be consistent between all the sources. But like I said, there are some contradictions depending on which source you go from. But one thing I did leave out in my video is that it was known right from the start that the Custer wolf was an animal, not anything supernatural or anything like that. But I wanted to add some like mystery or whatever to it, so I was very vague in describing the animal or anything up until the very end when he was finally killed. But even from the start, everybody knew it was just a flesh and blood animal and not anything supernatural. When I was putting the video together, I came upon a hurdle where I had to show the monster in quotations, without actually showing it or what it was. And the solution that I came up with was to show eyes glowing in the darkness. And that kept it vague as to what it actually was, so that there would be the surprise at the end when it was just a normal wolf. And you might be wondering, what was those glowing eyes? Well, I'll show you. And you might get a laugh out of this. It is the first frame of this GIF, or GIF, however you pronounce it, from the Cheeseburger website. It's just a ordinary household cat, so you might think that's funny, but in the words of Todd Howard, it just works. So I went with it. And nobody said anything or knew that it was just a normal cat. So yeah, it worked out quite well, I think. Of course, I could have just, made a couple dots on a black screen or something too, but whatever. So, anyway, I just thought I'd explain some of the background behind the video and how I made it and the information I used. And I combined that together with the Indian Wars because this happened in the Black Hills, and I wanted to give some background on the history of the area. And it was also Native American Heritage Month, too, so, two birds with one stone, I guess. And also, it seemed to me that there was some parallels between the fight of the Sioux against the encroaching settlers and the wolf and his fight against the ranchers. Because, like the Native Americans, the wolves and the other predators depended on the buffalo, which were wiped out. So anyway, I reckon not a lot of people are going to be watching this video, or at least not up until the end here, so probably not a lot of people will hear this, but for those that did, I just want to say that I hope you all had a happy holidays or whatever, if you celebrated or whatever. And this has been another video completed for another day. It was just a quick, easy way to make a video within a day, because a video a day keeps the unsubscribers away, right? Well, actually, no.